This isn't my first time looking at the Vigilante 8 games. We've been here before. But in the last video, I didn't really talk about these games much aside from criticizing them. But I like to think I've grown as a man and a gamer, and I've found my inner chi. So today, I've decided to come back and give them a real fair shake. Does anyone remember Vigilante 8?
Can you dig it?
Let me just start off by saying I love car combat games. Twisted Metal has always been in my top 5. They were truly revolutionary for the day, not to mention incredibly fun. And as such, Twisted Metal inspired many knockoffs such as Rogue Vacation, Interstate 76, WWE's Crush Hour, which deserves a video on its own. Even Maxis threw their hat in the ring with Streets of SimCity. Yet none of these games did anything better than Twisted Metal. Vigilante 8 was developed by Luxaflux, but published by Activision. For those wondering who Luxaflux is, they're the people behind such classics as the True Crime games, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Kung Fu Panda, Shrek 2, and Star Wars Demolition. They shut down in 2010 so Activision could pump more shitty COD games out every year. The N64 version of Vigilante 8 received a relatively positive reviews. GameSpot noted the game's offerings would give reason for players to retire from Twisted Metal 2. Electronic Gaming Monthly noted the N64 multiplayer mode offered more fun and ran relatively smoothly in a high-resolution mode. Second Offense on N64, however, received very average reviews. So obviously we're going to look at the N64 versions today. Before we begin, we really need to get some far out tunes going. To sum the soundtrack up, it's like bad 70s cop music with a side dish of 70s porn music. It's all just generic funk disco, but hot damn does it make you want to throw on a sequin shirt, tie-dye bell bottoms, and shitty platform shoes to sashay headfirst into the fight. My favorite is this one. Groovy as fuck. Now that we have our Spankin' It song picked out, let's just get the plot out of the way right off the top. I mean, it's not like it really matters, it's just an arcadey car combat game, but there is a setting, and here it is. The game is set in an alternate 1975. Sid Byrne, this trenchcoat wearing douche that looks like a bargain bin Tony Stark on black tar heroin, is hired by Omar, the Oil Monopoly Alliance regime, to destroy all competing oil companies so Omar can establish a monopoly on oil. That's it. Simple and very shallow, but again, it's an arcade game, so what do you really expect? Second Offense is set 2 years after the events of the first game. Bad guy 70s stereotype Slick Clyde wants to steal time machines to go back in time and eliminate the vigilantes before they can meddle in their nefarious affairs. I honestly don't know what I was expecting, but this wasn't it. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, both games feature 3 modes: Quest, Arcade, and Survival. Arcade mode is your standard pick an arena, pick a car, and be the last one standing game mode. It's really fun for quick play sessions. Survival mode is where you go up against a never-ending onslaught of enemies until you die. It can be fun, but you more often than not get cornered and killed very easily. Quest mode, on the other hand, is the story in Vigilante 8. But what I find really neat is that each character has their own bite-sized story. A mini journey where you accomplish their own unique goals. This honestly surprised me. I found myself becoming very interested in seeing how these journeys unfolded. Take Chassis Blue here. Her ambition is to quit the FBI and make it to California to become an actress. Or the cybernetically enhanced Houston 8, who was brainwashed by Omar to destroy the vigilantes, and throughout her story, she fights against her cybernetics and in the end wins. And then meets Convoy, who she's always admired. These stories aren't all that deep, but they do add personality to all these characters, all these bite-sized stories from the overarching narrative of the series. For example, Slick Clyde is a vigilante in the first game, but after putting on the bracelet that Houston 8 ripped off to free herself from mind control at the end of her story, he ends up succumbing to Omar's mind control himself, emerging as Lord Clyde, leader of the Coyotes and CEO of Omar in the second game. And due to these stories being different, some drivers will battle in arenas that others won't. I like that variation a lot, because to fully beat the game and unlock everything, you need to complete all these stories. In Second Offense, quest mode is more the same, but they ended up adding more objectives per level, and it seems like that would be an obvious step forward, if they didn't fuck it up by making them completely monotonous, and sometimes the quest markers didn't even show up for me, so I'm left to just kill everyone and hope, no pray, the game lets me advance. So let me tell you about all these saucy miscreants you'll be able to play as. The characters are broken up into 3 main factions. You have the Vigilantes, led by Convoy. His team includes Chassis Blue, Sheila, Slick Clyde, John Torque, and Dave. Convoy and Dave are unlockable. And then there are the Coyotes, led by Sid Byrne. His team includes Loki, Houston 3, Boogie, Beeswax, and Molo. Just like the Vigilantes, there are 2 unlockable drivers, and they are Sid Byrne himself and Molo. The last unlockable character is Y the Alien. He shares no allegiance, he just ran out of gas on Earth. In Second Offense, there are a few new faces, a few returning, and some changes in allegiance. Returning from the first game and fighting for the Vigilantes are Sheila, Houston, Convoy, and John Torque. New additions include the Flying All-Star Trio and Dave's Cultsman. Houston, Convoy, and Dave's Cultsman are unlockable characters. Returning on the Coyotes side, you have Molo, Boogie, and Lord Clyde, formerly Slick Clyde of the Vigilantes. The new characters are Dallas 13, Nina Loco, and Obaki. Lord Clyde, Obaki, and Boogie are unlockable. The third faction are the Drifters. They serve as a buffer or gray area between the 2 major factions, all with their own ambitions and objectives. This team consists of Astronaut Bob O, Garbage Man, Agent R Chase, Padre Destino, Dusty Earth, and returning favorite, Chassis Blue. Padre Destino, Dusty Earth, and Chassis Blue are unlockable. So let's talk about guns. The weapons are pretty standard in both games. In addition to your trusty machine gun, you'll be able to use mortars, mines, and rockets. The mortars are pretty much useless, but that goes with mortars in most car combat games, Twisted Metal included. I even managed to hit myself with one. Another quirk of the mortar is that it homes in on your target, but if they drive up to you, you'll always take AoE damage. Just avoid the mortar, you'll thank me later. Second Offense added a flamethrower, which is very powerful, but on the original N64 hardware, it tanks the frame rate. The mines are decent, but very situational. The AI doesn't seem to be programmed to chase you down, so the only way I was able to make them almost semi-decent was to place a whole whack of them on the main route where I knew the AI would drive often. Even then, it's a very slow burn. You're better off sticking to the homing and non-homing rockets, as well as the rocket turret. You'll be lucky if you hit more than half your shots with the turret, but you don't have to be facing the enemy to hit them, so that's where the benefit lies. Your special weapon will vary between cars, naturally, and they are quite powerful, as they should be, but what really got me is that a lot of specials have this weird and random pushback. Some hit you and just toss you like you're a ball of paper in the wind. Not to mention, your specials can often send you flying just for firing them. And in the first game, special weapons made the entire screen flash this awful bright blue greenish color when they hit. It's very irritating, and if you're playing in a dark room, prepare to be blinded. Thankfully, Second Offense fixed that. It's one of the few things I think the game actually got right. But you'll only really notice this if you can actually land a hit, because targeting is of course very wonky in both games. Sometimes you'll be point blank with another vehicle, but your rocket turret will be facing a dude across the map. It only takes a second or two to correct itself, but it's still a major gripe. It's at its worst when you're using homing rockets. You'll fire and the rocket will just zip off away from the car you're trying to hit. Last on the topic of weapons, I do really like how opposed to every weapon somehow being tucked under your hood, they're merely attachments to your car, with the exception of the minigun of course, and fall off when you're out of ammo. Being able to pick them up from defeated drivers is a very nice touch too. Something that really frustrates me, and I mentioned this in my first video, is that if you stop close to another driver, their AI just tends to drive in circles around you, prompting this awkward ring around the rosy. This happens in both games and it does make for an easy kill, but it takes me out of the high octane action. Again, I'll refer to Twisted Metal. When this happens, most of the time the AI will just drive away, keeping the momentum going. But we're dealing with the mediocrist of AA knockoffs here, so it's best we just let this one slide. One thing I can't let slide though is the fact that Ghost Town and Vegas are so completely dark. In Ghost Town, I spent most of my time looking at the minimap, just trying to bumble my way to another combatant to kill. At least it's only a few maps across both games where this is really a problem, but some arenas are almost too big for their own good, making weapon pickups difficult to get to. There were a few times where I went a solid minute or two without finding a single weapon. The first game was fine for the most part, but in Second Offense there were many times where my main thought was why? Why have a map this big with very few enemies to fight? Okay, so what about power-ups? Take a guess here. See this green diamond? Can you guess what it is? Money? A weapon perhaps? No, it's a shield. How out of ideas were they? Why not a circle or something? Why a diamond? Okay, how about this lightning bolt thing? See, upon picking it up, it awkwardly follows you around for a few seconds. I had no idea what this was, so I had to Google it. Again, take a guess. Give up? It's a radar jammer. It really confused me, so I'll explain. That symbol that follows you is essentially where enemy homing missiles will land instead of hitting you. Useful, but again, why not a radar symbol or something? This weird blue totem looking thing allows you to hover over water. Not much else going on there. The X is double damage, which you'd think would be confusing, but when you drive over it, the game displays a giant X2 in the top corner. And the wrench is health. In the sequel, they added a power up to hover, and oh man, you see that UFO symbol? Don't get it. Stay away. If you enjoy steering or traction in a game that already offers very little of either, stay far away. It makes the driving way worse. And as if that wasn't enough, your rockets go right over all your enemies. You gotta time it just right and accelerate at the pixel perfect moment to catch a bitch with a missile. It's even more terrible when the enemy has it. Your rockets go right under them, and they seem to always beeline for power-ups in these games. So you could have an entire game where that asshat in a stretch limo is just hovering around. A lot like your hand in your middle school prom pictures. In the first game, steering and control felt tight and responsive. Maybe a little too sensitive here and there, but hey, it worked. But in Second Offense, steering feels more sluggish, yet more slick. It's impossible to drive straight sometimes. I'm trying my best in these clips, and I'm still crashing into everything. Sometimes I can turn mega sharp, and other times it feels like I'm driving a damn tank. And holy shit, the stage hazards. They're fucking everywhere and very random. Everywhere you drive, you seem to get knocked around or sucked up into something. It really takes me out of the action. Like I'm already contending with this grippy, oily, tactile yet slippery, awful driving. Seriously, it feels like I'm driving on the floor of a recently used sex dungeon that just had linoleum flooring put down to catch the drippings. And on top of that, you also want to suck me through whatever this is, a turbine, and throw me all over the place? Leave me the fuck alone. Let me shoot this hover car in peace. Some stage hazards are nice, but this is way too many, and they're very unimaginative. They all either push or pull. Remember in Twisted Metal Black, in the suburbs level, you could displace a Ferris wheel and have it tear its way through the map? Or going back even further, Twisted Metal 2, blowing up the Eiffel Tower. You'll get none of that here. If they ripped off Twisted Metal, which they did, how did they mess this up? I've never been critical about graphics or frame rate in older video games because it comes with the territory. But in Second Offense, the frame rate is so abysmal, it felt like I was watching a slideshow. Now I don't know if I mentioned the flamethrower, but damn. And even if you're not using it, the frames seem to take a hit from nearly any action, so that takes some adjustment. You know what, I'm glad I went back and gave these games another go. I'm surprised by how much I liked the first one. It's not without its bullshit, but I would say it's a pretty solid game and an absolute blast to play. I honestly think Second Offense was a bit of a downgrade. There wasn't really anything that stood out to me and made me think, wow, this is better. The first was smoother, faster, and overall more enjoyable to bomb around in while listening to that sweet cliche 70s music. And I'll remember these games fondly as they sit on my shelf and never get played again. Thank you for watching, my fellow Phinacopteri, and please leave a like and a sub. Why not a comment? Tell me what your favorite car combat game is, but brace yourself for severe avian judgment if it's not a Twisted Metal game. And have a wonderful day.